That was an example of surf guitar, which is one of my favorite genres of instrumental guitar music because it's so focused on melody, and it's simple, but in a way it's not, because pretty much every surf song I love has a great melody, and that's something that not every musician can do. It's actually harder than it looks. But anyway, we're going to cover in this video some basics of surf guitar, how to get the sound, some of the techniques, like tremolo picking, and we're going to talk about reverb and all these things. But first, let's talk a little bit about the origins of surf music. So surf music comes from Southern California in the late 50s, early 60s. Especially attributed to Dick Dale and the Dale Tones. They had some regional surf hits and stuff, and eventually he had some stuff that got national attention. But one thing you'll recognize by Dick Dale is Miserlou. Sure, everybody's heard that. Every American citizen has probably heard that at least once in their life. So that's a perfect example of surf music because it has all the elements: the big glisses, the big slides, the tremolo picking, the heavy reverb. Listen to what that sounds like. I'm going to turn the reverb off here. Again with the reverb. So the reverb adds something crucial, as you can see. Clean reverb. One thing you hear a lot in these surf tunes is they'll play a chord and they'll do just an ever so slight whammy bar dip. And that reverb trail in conjunction with that whammy bar dip just gives you just such a cool sound. It's almost like something you'd see in a Western movie or something. Sometimes the subtle things are the most effective. So let's backtrack a little bit. So the tremolo picking thing, like in Miserlou and that tune I opened with, that is by a band called the Volcanoes, and yeah, that's right. The song is called Half Moon Bay. Cool band, by the way. They've got a bunch of really cool surf tunes. They're one of the more the modern surf bands, I believe. By modern, I mean, after 1965. So anyway, tremolo picking. There's basically two ways to do that. There's the lock wrist way, like Dick Dale. And then there's the more like loose wrist. The lock wrist thing is a lot sloppier, but it sounds a lot more powerful. And that's how like Dick Dale got those. really crazy sounding slides, like tremolo pick slides and stuff. But that wears your arm out pretty quick, so you got to decide if it's worth the headache. But one thing you can do to practice that tremolo picking, whether you do it with the lighter touch or you do it with a heavy locked elbow thing, is practicing accents. So, for instance, if we were doing 16th notes, 1 E and a 2 E and a 3 E and a 4 E and a accent on the downbeat. Turn the reverb off. 1 E and a 2 E and a 3 E and a 4 E and a 1 E and a 2 E and a 3 E and a 4 E and a. If you play that really fast, do the first of every 8 notes. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. I like to practice doing that just with that series of 8th notes and that big slide, because that's something that happens so much. It's good to have that technique sort of be second nature. You can also practice doing triplets or groups of 3 or 6. I'm doing groups of 6 there, so I'm going triplet, 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 triplet. Listen to it with the reverb. So back in the day, in the early 60s, there wasn't a zillion guitar amplifiers and stuff to choose from. There was like 2 or 3, maybe a handful more, but back in the day, the amps didn't have a ton of headroom, so you would get sort of a natural distortion sound when you crank the amps up, and that's. This is an amp sim meant to simulate that kind of sound. You can hear how it's a little bit dirty. As opposed to just a straight clean tone. When you would juice those amps, they would just distort just a little bit. Even though Leo Fender sort of designed his amps to have as much headroom as they could back in the day, when you juiced them, they would still give you that little bit of sharp edge, or whatever you want to call it, a little bit of breakup. And if you really pushed them, they'd really start to crackle. That's pretty much what a Fender amp would sound like if you cranked it all the way up. It's almost a rock sound, hard rock sound. And when you put put reverb in front of that, it's just a really powerful sound. That's maybe a little too cranked. I'm gonna dial that back some. That's a song called Pentor, and that has some of those whammy bar dips like I was talking about there. It's probably one of the easiest surf songs to play. So let's kind of take a look at that. So the main melody of the song is just an A minor, a G, and an F chord. Bar chords. So you play A minor, you do a slow, light dip, and it's just not even anywhere near a half step. It's less than that. Okay, and then you arpeggiate the chord, 3rd string, 4th string, 2nd string, 3rd string, 4th string. Go to G, major, do the same series of strings, then do it on F, so we have E, major, and then okay, so then we're going to be on this E Phrygian scale lick, so that's just B, C, D, E, F, G, F, E. And then do an up strum, and then a down strum, and then another down strum. Actually, it's just up, down. Okay, and then we're going to be on an F chord, but with a 6th. Which would be the 3rd fret D of the 2nd string. And then we're going to go from that D to the C to the open B. And A. And then we're going to be on E major again. Later in the song, it does this cool little riff. take a look at that. Basically, that's just outlining the same chords we played, but instead of full chords, it's just arpeggiating the triads. So the first part, that's an A minor triad, and we're palm muting the top couple strings. So that's just A, C, E, C, A, C, E, E, C. Okay, and then we're going to take that pattern and we're going to do G major. So it's going to be the notes G, B, and D. Move that down to F. So that's the notes E, G sharp, and B, but with the same pattern. Okay, and then we're back on that E Phrygian scale lick. Okay, and then it does this little descending E, D, C, so pretty much all the notes in this song are compatible with the C major, A minor scale, except for when it goes to this E major arpeggio, and when it goes to the E major chord, which actually kind of creates an A harmonic minor type of effect when we're juxtaposing that A minor scale against the E chord, because the E has the G sharp as the third, which would be the raised seventh of the harmonic minor scale. So Pintor, Hawaii Samurai, they're a really cool modern surf band. They have a really cool version of that song that you can find on all the music platforms. And the intro has some cool kind of scale type stuff that I left out. Which is just using those A minor scale tones that surround the chord shape. So like, at the very beginning, it's playing A minor, and then you have D, C, D, then E, F, E, D, C. Then while he's playing the G chord, he comes up to the C note, and then D, E, D, C, B. We do a B natural, A, B, C, D, C, B flat, or B rather, B natural, A, G, F, E. That same descending A minor scale starting on the 5th. So there's some cool cool things going on in that tune. Not any kind of tremolo picking or anything like in the Dick Dale song we talked about in the Volcanoes tune, but a lot of really cool dips, a lot of reverb, and some cool tone. So back in the day, the early days of reverb, the very early days of reverb, reverb wasn't a part of the amp. Reverb was on these outboard units. Fender made one, I think it's called a 6G15 or something like that. And consequently, you would plug into the reverb and then you would plug the reverb into the amp. And when you run the reverb before the preamp like that, it just sounds nastier, but it has a cool, like almost distortion type of effect. It's a light distortion type of effect. It just doesn't sound nearly as clean as when the reverb is a part of the amp. So let me give you an example of that. Right now I'm using an outboard reverb. It's a Surfy Bear reverb, which is basically like a circuit retrace of that 6G15. I think that's what it's called. Correct me if I'm wrong. But you can hear this is the Surfy Bear before the amp. Okay, now I'm gonna switch to amp reverb, and I'm gonna crank it up, and you'll hear the difference. So let's go back to the Surfy Bear. So it's just kind of dirtier, it's grittier, but it has a cool effect for surf guitar. It kind of gives your tone one more element that is unique these days to surf guitar. Most people don't use outboard reverb units except for surf players. I guess in some you know, outlier vintage gear nuts, but it's mostly surf players that use like the Fender outboards and the Surfy Bears and stuff like that. You just get like a certain kind of, they call it drip, but if I play a muted note, you can kind of hear that effect. That's the Messer Chup's version of a song called Popcorn. I think they call it Popcorno's Revenge or something like that. But there's a band called Hot Butter, I think. They covered that song. I can't remember the original composer's name, but it's from like the early 70s or late 60s or something like that. But you can really hear that drip. That's something that is, you know, kind of unique to the outboard reverb units. You won't get nearly as much drip using amp reverb or just a standard reverb pedal. Most reverb pedals aren't really designed to do that, but it's something unique for outboard spring reverb units, and it's cool. We like it. So not every surf tune is going to have mountains of reverb on it like that. I'm going to turn that down some. You know, some of the popular tunes like Walk Don't Run are significantly cleaner, significantly less reverb. So we can't paint everything with the same brush. There's going to be a lot of variations in sound. Most surf players, one thing they have in common is most surf players use single coil pickups. Most surf players use Fender style amps. There are some rare exceptions, but another thing that most surf players do is use flat wound strings, because the combination of these Fender single coil guitars and the Fender amps are pretty bright, and the flat wound strings help to kind of dim that down just a little bit to where it doesn't sound like ice picks attacking your ears. And also another cool thing about the flat wounds is all those glisses and slides and stuff are much smoother with flat wounds, and they don't rip your fingers to shreds, which is kind of cool. And another thing that's unique to surf guitars, a lot of these flat wound players use pretty heavy strings. The heavy strings tend to stay in tune better with the whammy bar dips and the whammy bar usage. You can do quite a lot of abuse on these styles of tremolo units, and the guitars stay in tune pretty well, much better than like a Bigsby. Bigsby guitars, Bigsby vibratos have a great sound, but they're terrible tuning stability. The Jazzmaster style tremolo is much better for that, even though I would argue that the Bigsby sounds a little bit better. It's a little bit more even. And plus you get kind of clicking noises and stuff with the Fender Jazzmaster style trim. But you don't hear that through the amp. I mean, you got to be in the room to hear that acoustically to hear it at all, so it's not really that big of a deal. I would take the tuning stability over the problems with the Bigsby any day in terms of the trade-off between sound and stability. What are some other things to talk about surf guitar? Most of the harmonic structure and melodies, it's pretty simple stuff. A lot of just simple diatonic chord progressions relating directly to the major scale. There's a ton of songs in E minor and A minor. Pretty simple keys most of the time, but every once in a while you'll find something that like throws you off a little bit. But most of the time the chord progressions are pretty simple. They're straight ahead major and minor chord progressions, but the melodies are cool. So we talked about Miserlou. I played Walk Don't Run. What are some other big time surf tunes? Pipeline by the Chantays, I believe. Yeah, the Chantays. First song that I ever learned how to play. Simple stuff, and that little pipeline rhythm is something you hear in a lot of rockabilly tunes. They'll take that and juice it up. So all that is basically is just E, B natural, G, B. It's those 4 notes over and over again. But it's kind of in the way you play it. You can put the emphasis on the downbeat, you can put the emphasis on the upbeat. I kind of like it on the upbeat. That melody, pretty simple. It's just based off of an E minor scale. There's literally 1, 2, 3, 4 notes in that melody. If you've never figured out a song by ear before, that's a really great place to start. Pretty simple stuff. And the melody has sort of a linear nature to it because it moves up a fourth. Okay, and then it goes to the 5 chord, which is B, C, trim slides. Sounds almost like you're in in a wave, especially with that little bit of reverb. Actually, I'd probably use a little tad more reverb than that. So with that reverb, you can add cool effects just by palm muting and changing your dynamic range a little bit, because how you hit the string has a big effect on how that reverb reacts. That's why I kind of got quiet there, because when you get quiet and throw an accent in there, you can really hear that reverb drip, and it's cool as hell. How I got quiet there, and then kind of palm muted the notes, and then I played some notes that were not palm muted. And then I did the little, I don't know what that is, keyboard or marimba or something in the song. It's cool though. So yeah, that changing the dynamics has a big effect. And then on that turnaround, notice how I'm accenting certain notes. Listen to how this sounds if I take all those elements away. the same song, it sucks. So you gotta experiment with some of that stuff, the muting, the dynamics, the hard stabs. It makes a huge difference in how the whole thing turns out. I think I'm gonna cap it there. So check out some Link Ray, the Ventures, the Shantays, Dwayne Eddy, you know, Rebel Rouser. I mean, you could argue that's kind of surf. Peter Gum. That one song, I think it's called Apache. Link Ray has a killer version of that. Has some of those cool whammy bar dips. I can't remember how it goes. It's been a long time since I played that song. But yeah, that's got some cool dynamics and stuff. So those are some things to check out. As far as new bands, I really like this band called the Bambi Molesters. I think they're from somewhere in one of those former Soviet bloc countries, like, I don't know, Czechoslovakia or something. Don't quote me on that. Pretty sure they speak Russian or one of its satellite languages. They're killer. They've got this one tune that like lit my fire for surf guitar. It's something like. They're killer. There's a band called Messer Chups. I can't remember where they're from. They're also European. They're at least I think they're from one of the Russian countries too. They're pretty killer. Volcanoes, mentioned them earlier. They're great. And of course Dick Dale. So check out some of that stuff. That's a good place to start if you're not already familiar with that stuff. Work on that picking technique and start learning these tunes by ear, because like I said, a lot of these melodies and chord progressions are simple, and if you don't have a history of figuring stuff out on your own without tabs or without sheet music, this is a great place to start your ear training journey, because you know, not only is this stuff pretty simple to figure out, but it's also fun to play, and it also gives you an understanding of how melodies fit together, of how chords fit together, how a little bit of improv and, you know, a little pentatonic scale can go a long way and stuff like that. Since there's not a ton of string bending, because a lot of these guys use really heavy flat wounds, so there's not a ton of string bending going on. You don't have all the articulation problems that, you know, if you were figuring out, you know, like straight ahead. Blues and stuff like that, that's a lot harder to figure out because of all the bends and slides and stuff like that. Even though we do have a lot of slides in surf music, you don't have all that bending and all the crazy techniques, crazy hammer-on techniques and all that stuff. You virtually no fingerboard tapping, none of that wild like guitar theatric stuff. You don't really see a whole lot of that other than the fast tremolo picking. There's not even really a lot of fast playing at all. So it's, like I said, it's accessible. We'll say accessible. That's a good word to use, but it's still cool. It still sounds great, and you can learn a lot from it. So that's surf guitar. If y'all got any questions, hit me up. I'm Harvey Mosteller. If you haven't checked out my videos on rockabilly guitar, if you like that stuff, I've got some recent videos I posted of me going through rockabilly rhythm and rockabilly lead concepts. And a lot of that stuff is transferable. I mean, rockabilly and surf are pretty much like two peas from the same pod. Similar origins and a similar structure in terms of harmony and stuff like that. So we'll leave it there. I'll catch you next time. I'm Harvey. Goodbye.